All right, in this video here, we're working on Khan Academy, and in particular, this skill in Khan Academy is called function inputs and outputs graph. So what we're talking about is looking at a graph, and at times you may be asked a question about an input value, at times it could be an output value, and it's really just assessing, do you truly understand how a function works with a graph in regards to the inputs and the outputs and how you kind of go back and forth, and it's kind of a dance between the two of them. So the question here is, what is the input value other than -7 for which h of x equals 3? So we'll talk about the other than -7 here in a second, but let's just first start with the second part of it. They're saying for which h of x equals 3. They're asking for the input value, which means that we need to first start with the output and work backwards towards the input. H of x equals 3. Whenever you see something like this, h of x equals 3, what they're saying is that the h function for some unknown input, which we're going to call x, some unknown input produces an output of 3. They're telling you the output is 3, and it's your job to figure out what is the input. So on the output axis, which is the y-axis, that's the output, right? Input is always on the x, but the output is always on the y-axis. So we need to go to 3 on the y-axis because that's the output we're working with. So I'm going to go up to 3 and then go find yourself the h function. Now, in this case, there's more than one answer, right? There's more than one ways to go. You could look at that output, or you could look at the output over here. And that is where, I'll erase those lines. So it's either going to be this point here, or it's going to be that point there. It turns out that there's two inputs that give the same outputs, and that's okay. And that's why they had this question that says, what is the input value other than -7? So -7 is not the answer, even though that is an input that produces an output of 3. They want to know what's the other one. So -7 is one of the inputs, but the other one is over here, and it is 5. You can kind of check your answer mentally before you plug it in by kind of working through it in reverse. You're saying, what is the input value that produces an output of 3? So if I go over to 5 on the input line, which is the x-axis, go find the h function, and yes, it is an output of 3. So the answer is 5. I see a very common mistake with students is they'll do all this work, and at the end, they'll input the number 3 as their answer, which is what was given at the very beginning. So that's a very common mistake. Make sure that you're providing the correct thing that they're asking before you hit the enter button, so you don't miss problems just by silly mistakes. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at another one. And in this section, not every single problem is going to look the exact same. There is a little bit more variety than some of the other sections in Khan Academy. Select all input values for which g of x is equal to 4. When they say g of x is equal to 4, right here, what they're saying is when you take the g function and you put in some input, you get an output of 4. So select all the input values that give us an output of 4. And so it's going to be our job to look at this graph down below and figure out which of these input values are going to give us an output of 4. So on the graph, I'll zoom up a little bit so we can see all the answers at once. There you go. On the graph here, let's go ahead and find the output of 4 on the, is it 4? Make sure, I may have messed up there. G of x equals 4. Let's go ahead and find an output of 4 on the output axis, which is the y-axis. So if I go up to 4, and then go look for where the g function's at. There's no g function to the left of it, but it looks like it does have an output of 4 right there, right? There's just one answer here. There's only one time that this graph has an output of 4. So when I go to 4 on the output axis, I go find the g function. Now go figure out what is that input, and the input is 9. Now, it is possible on these kinds of problems, it could be more than one answer, but on this one, it's just 9. 9's the only answer that we're going to get. X equals 9. And let me do that real fast. Oops. Check the answer, and we got it correct. Let's go ahead and do 2 more, see if there's any different kinds of questions that they're going to ask. what is the input value for which f of x equals negative 3? Kind of a similar question. They're saying you have an f function, and what they want you to do is figure out for what value of x do you have an output of negative 3. We're going to go ahead and go to negative 3 on the output, which is down here at negative 3. Go find the f function. It looks like it only intersects at one spot, which is right there. And the input is 5. So we have 5 as our answer. We'll do one more of these. And so it looks like there's only 2 different variations of question types they have. And I'm happy that this video did, 2 of each. They may throw a different question type at you, but I believe this is the main 2 types that they ask in this section. Select all input values for which f of x equals 6. They're saying take the f function, find what inputs give an output of 6. That's what they're really asking you. So when we scroll down below, we're going to look for when the output is 6. So let me go ahead and draw. Let's see, the output is positive 6 up here. What input values produce an output of 6? If you go to the left, you can see there is no graph. If you go to the right, you can see there is no graph there. There's a graph, but there's no line on the graph. So there is no values. The f function, at least within what we're provided here from negative 10 to 10, it never has an output value of 6. So the answer here is actually going to be none. There is no input value that's going to produce an output of 6, at least not in what we were provided. So the answer here is none. And let's see if that was correct. And it was. What I would recommend doing is, do 4 problems, see how well you do. If you get 4 out of 4, most likely you get this stuff, and you don't need to bug yourself too much more on this. If you only get 1 correct or 2 correct, I would say do 4 more problems. Do 4 more problems. Do 4 more problems. Some of you, it may take only 4 problems. Some of you, it may take 20 problems. But I'm pretty confident that after enough practice, this will make sense. It's the same idea as what we were doing earlier on the other skills with inputs, except now you're just working backwards. You're starting with an output, and now you're going to work backwards to find what is your x value, what is your input. All right, guys, take care. Keep working hard.